how Joe Biden's America would be different from Trump's America as far as India is concerned. This is the most debated question so far for concerned Indians. But surprisingly, it won't matter much for India as much as it does for Modi and Hindutva nationalists. Let's sail through this. It was under a Republican administration led by George W. Bush in 2005 that the United States had denied visa to then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi. A Democratic President, Barack Obama, went around hugging Prime Minister Modi a few years later. His Republican successor, Donald Trump, is prone to lash out at India over a few Harley motorcycles. And yet, the strategic ties between two countries have only been growing. No matter who wins the election in New Delhi or Washington, India-US ties only get stronger. That caveat aside, it is important to note the ups and downs in the relationship. As Joe Biden is about to become the next US president, he can only do better for India than Trump did. But Joe Biden may not be politically good for Narendra Modi. Even if you may not like to hear the truth that India is not Modi and Modi is not India. The country is bigger than its leader, no matter how popular he or she is. But we can be sure that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won't give Modi the free pass that Trump did. Biden has expressed disapproval of the Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizens, and Kamala Harris's word on the abrogation of Article 370 should alarm New Delhi. Modi's Hindu fundamentalist base was ecstatic when Donald Trump became president because of his unabashed calling of Islamic terror. They also saw his victory as a sign of the global legitimacy of nationalist, xenophobic and Islamophobic politics. In a similar fashion, a Democrat victory will have an opposite impact on the global politics. A Biden presidency will deepen India-US ties thanks to rising strategic influence of China. But when it comes to hugging Modi, the Democrats might remember how Modi lent himself to the Trump campaign. You might take a note that even under Trump, the US government hasn't exactly been silent on growing deficit of democracy in India. Alice Wells of the US State Department issued statement after statement disapproving India on the CAA, detained Kashmiri politicians, and internet restrictions in Kashmir. If that's what the Trump administration did, it is easy to guess that Biden will be louder. And to be frank, India is not Saudi Arabia for the US, that it would look the other way. Modi has also invested too heavily in Indian Americans. But with Kamala Harris as vice president, the Indian American community will not be seen as Modi's army influencing US politics. More likely that the Hindu fundamentalist noise in the US election have irritated the Democratic leadership. None of this is good news for Modi, unless Tulsi Gabbard rises up in the future to contest for the presidency. But if you look at issues except calling out loud the Islamic terror and Pakistan, the Trump presidency hasn't been great for India. Trump's inward-looking isolationist stance has left the American friends such as India, South Korea, Japan, Germany feeling betrayed. His protectionist policies have hurt the Indian economy, and his xenophobia has hurt Indian immigration visa seekers more than all the Muslim countries put together. Donald Trump has forced India not to buy cheaper oil from Iran and Venezuela. Trump forced India to buy more expensive oil and gas from the United States, even pushing for a long-term commitment that are not viable for India. Despite the Indo-China border tension, Donald Trump hasn't given India a waiver from an American law that threatens sanction on countries purchasing arms from Russia. Meanwhile, Trump raised tariffs on import from India on everything from steel to rubber, causing a mini trade war with India. He has removed preferential treatment given to Indian exports, further hurting the Indian economy at a time when it's been bleeding. A host of changes to US visa policies have made it harder for US firms to hire Indians on H-1B work visas. This has hit the Indian outsourcing model hard. India ratified the Paris Climate Accord in October 2016, under the presumption that America will keep its word on the Green Climate Fund that would have invested in Indian renewables. But Trump did not want to shell out the money and blamed India and China for walking out of the Paris Agreement. But Biden and Modi might get along well on climate change, as both these leaders consider climate change a threat to humanity, unlike Donald J. Trump. A Democrat administration in the US is expected to be more reasoned, mature, and act towards India as if it were a friend, and not club it with China and other countries on issue of trade, climate change, oil, and defense exports like Republican Trump did. The Trump administration's growing hardline on China has aligned well with India at a time of growing Chinese aggression at the LAC. Trump also did take a hard line on Pakistan, but it was only to avoid giving money to Islamabad. Yet, in the bargain, he also ceded space to Islamabad in the Afghan peace talk. A Democrat administration is likely to go back to the drawing board on the US-Iran nuclear deal, opening up not just Iranian oil but also strategic space for India with Iran in the Middle East. A Biden-Harris presidency may also look differently at Paris Agreement, visa for Indian workers, and so on. All things considered, Biden should be good for India, even if he is less keen to see relation with India in the personalized format that Modi prefers, and see them more as government-to-government relations. That is how it should be. Over-personalized diplomacy has backfired for Modi with Nawaz Sharif and Xi Jinping, and his stadium rallies with Donald Trump has been an embarrassment as Joe Biden has won. It's not that as if Modi's personalized style was able to tame Trump, who frequently lashed out at India and mimicked Modi, insults we swallowed without a whimper. A Biden presidency won't embarrass us with offers such as mediation on Kashmir, like Trump did. Just look at how Trump recently insulted India by saying it has filthy air, and Biden tweeted and defended India. It's time for India and the US to put their national interest above domestic politics at a time of great Chinese expansionism. India getting a good trade deal with the United States alone will be worth a lot more than sort of civilian honors that countries like Russia or UAE helpfully gave Modi before a general election.